Hi, everyone. Welcome to Lincoln Square. I'm Sam Osterhout, the executive producer here. And that countdown, that music really had me had me going. It really,
I was jamming.
I was dancing in the background. It was great. Uh, I am so excited to have you guys here. Last week, as many of you know, Trump really gutted the Department of Education, leaving it, well, kind of in shambles. And we've heard a lot of stories about the people that's affected directly. And today I have one of those people. Jason Cottrell is an AFGE Local 252 member who worked at the Department of Education in the Office of Post-Secondary Education as a data collector until last week. And we also have Sheria Smith, who is the president of AFGE Local 252, the union that represents the workers of the Department of Education. So there are a couple of things I want to do today, and welcome, and thank you guys for joining. Really a pleasure to have you. A couple of things I want to do today. First, I want to hear the story of what happened, what really went down. Yeah. And, but then I want to connect some dots because I was talking to Jason before the show, and, I'm a parent and I am involved in my kids' school activities. I go to PTA when I can. I do some board stuff. There's a big disconnect between parents like me and the big federal, Department of Education. So I want to connect some of these dots, but first, Jason, can you tell us what happened?
Sure. So let me preface. I was with the department for 9.5 years altogether. I started in 2016. So, I was there for the end of the Obama administration, the first Trump administration, all the Biden administration, COVID, getting COVID relief out, all of that stuff. And we, of course, elected a new president. And I think a lot of us kind of made the false assumption that things would be just like the first Trump administration. And it wasn't. They were really kind of focused on eliminating positions within the government. And, when January 20th hit, we started to hear some rumors regarding, upcoming position eliminations or RIFs, reductions in forces. We call them RIFs in the government. And we started to see what DOGE was doing in some of the other agencies. And we knew Project 2025 existed. And a big piece of that, there's an entire chapter about eliminating the Department of Education and moving, some of the services around, eliminating a lot of the services in general. And we at the department were kind of getting a little nervous. And I think it wasn't until about mid-February, at least for me, where I was really starting to get scared. I mean, I was coming home just breaking down because the writing was on the wall for a lot of folks. And, we were kind of getting hints from some of our supervisors that stuff was coming. And we didn't know what that was going to be. And DOGE was doing its work with Elon Musk, trillionaire Elon Musk, making the decisions for our federal government as to what to eliminate. We were seeing it with, especially in the post-secondary side, we were seeing the attacks on some of the institutions of higher ed, pulling back some of the resources there. And I was out on medical leave starting March 7th. I had to have surgery that day. And I left my laptop at home, all of that type of stuff. And March 11th hit. And so, I was getting text messages more or less. And so I messaged my supervisor and I said, I haven't received anything because I don't have my laptop with me. And she said, she hadn't been home. She hadn't heard any of the news. And one of my colleagues said, I received an email saying that I'm still there, thanking me for my service and everything, And I said, I haven't gotten anything because I don't have my laptop. And then I found out my entire kind of group within my my area, my competitive area, had been eliminated. And specifically, I was in the management and support unit. And so 2 of our units within our competitive area were eliminated, unfortunately. And the competitive area being the Office of Post-Secondary Education, and the management and support unit within that area, as well as the international and foreign language education area, were eliminated. And so, we were placed on administrative leave about a week later. We had to turn in our laptops, all of those types of things, go back in, do this, kind of song and dance of like getting our stuff from our offices, which, that was demoralizing in and of itself. I had to have somebody pack all my stuff up and help me carry it to my car because I had just had surgery. And, getting told, well, they're not allowed to help you. You got to do it yourself.
You're shitting me.
No. I mean, there were security guards saying, they're not allowed to help you. And I said, I can't push this. I literally had abdominal surgery. And
why? I mean, I don't want to get,
because cruelty is the point, Sam.
I mean,
Jason and I were riffing yesterday where he said that he was under the impression, or was told by his managers, that, it'll be the same as before. I was not under that impression. It could be because I came from private sector. I'm a lawyer by trade. I'm a Black woman in America. And I studied this campaign and read Project 2025. I was confused when I sat in on meetings as union president in November, where people were telling us that it's going to be the same as usual. I started at Ed right at the same time as Jason.
Wow.
And, I think because of the perspective I have as a union president, I knew we were not going to be the same. It's the reason why I've tried to prepare our members to get a CBA. And I told our members that though they do not have the congressional support to eliminate our agency, they're going to eliminate our agency by cruelty, by getting people to quit. And unfortunately, I have been right. From day one, I've been right. So cruelty is the point.
Well, I'd love to hear more about that, Sheria, because we talk a lot about Project 2025, and I think it was a big blind spot on the left. I mean, to a degree, a lot of people were talking about it, but it was almost like, say what? Like, what are you talking about? This Project 2025, they're doing it. And what is the point of closing the Department of Education?
Yeah, the point is an attack on working people. So, when you, point blank period. I mean, I think in the United States, we've gotten very comfortable with functioning but not perfect government. I hear people say this is unprecedented. It's only unprecedented if you're not a student of world history. It is absolutely precedented in every illegal or, improper regime. It's the reason why people have left their countries of origin to go to the United States, because you have regimes that are attacking education, regimes that are attacking the media, and regimes that are attacking the American people. And really, when you attack federal employees, you are attacking working people. We work. We are American citizens. You do not get rich working at the federal government, and certainly not at the U.S. Department of Education. And we work for working people. Jason and I are both recipients of, largesse of the U.S. Department of Education. We're both recipients of student loans because we're public servants. We were, recipients of student loan forgiveness. You think about this nation, what made this nation great is that it allowed people who came from humble beginnings to improve their status in life through education. And when you are attacking education, you are at war with working America. I'm sorry, I see Jason trying to chime in here.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Like I grew up, I was a Pell Grant recipient. Sheria was as well. I was a first generation student. I was from a rural part of Virginia. Everybody that I grew up with, we were striving to do better for our families and for ourselves. And, that was our ultimate goal. And, you grow up in a way in this nation where, you're told that the nation is going to support you in being better. And then all of a sudden, this happens and they're trying to, tear apart our education system that has uplifted so many of us. And that's really frustrating. And, as a Virginian, I'm a dedicated public servant. I went to the University of Virginia for my doctorate, and, Mr. Jefferson talked about self-governance, and that's a big part of that, is being, governed by the people and for the people. And, this administration, this is not what they want to do. They want to make sure that you understand that the government is doing stuff to you and not for you.
So yeah, that, I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. I wonder, I want to go back a little bit to the sort of chaos of all of this and ask both of you, because both of you were in it, involved in different ways. But it's like, if, most of us, you work in an office space, and if they just say one day, leave, there are things that you're doing that are not going to get done, right?
Yep.
So how does that, I can't, that boggles my mind, but I want to maybe put a little more concrete spin on this. So can you describe the work that you are actually doing and how that impacts our educational system? Because and I'll be honest, I think this would be a bigger story if people really knew how big of a deal the Department of Education was.
Right. Do you want to go first, Jason?
Yeah, I can. I from the day that I started at the department, I was reminded that, the Department of Education is a civil rights agency. We are dedicated to ensuring that students have access to a quality education. And so for me, my day-to-day was working on data collections and data quality and data governance related to ensuring that the funds that were going out of the agency for post-secondary education, specifically around grants, was effective in spending the taxpayers' dollars. And so, I was there as a steward of the of the US citizens, to making sure that the money that they were receiving out in the public was being utilized effectively and responsibly. And so, the project that I was working on in my last week there was starting a risk mitigation report. And so, literally ensuring that we were doing what was right for the American people and for the tax dollars that were going out of the agency. And so, we were ensuring that those students who go to, minority serving institutions, HBCUs, tribal colleges, that they were receiving the best education that they could based on the dollars that were going out of the department from the federal government. And so that's what's really frustrating, is I know that it directly impacts those students and those institutions, and it's going to cause harm if there's nobody there to make sure that that is not happening.
And before I was a union president, I was a civil rights attorney in the Office for Civil Rights, our second largest division. And so the Office for Civil Rights ensured that recipients of our tax dollars did right by our kids. That, you had a child with special needs or who deserved an accommodation, that they were actually receiving that accommodation. That a charter school that you got a voucher to can't say, oh, we're not actually going to give the accommodations to your kid. Or, you have a child who's Black, and they're disciplined more harshly than they would be if they were of another race. So we provided the oversight. I think the main two functions of our entire agency was funding and oversight.
Right.
And so, and again, you've shut that down. This administration has made it clear that they want to shut it down, and they have been miseducating people about what we do. We do not deal with curriculum. We do not deal with test scores. I was a public school teacher in the state of Texas before I went to law school, before I came here.
Wow.
I took my cues from the state of Texas. And so you have the very people who are in charge of states that have low test scores, blaming the federal government, blaming us for that, and then saying we don't want oversight because we want to be able to do what we want to do with public money. And we don't want to have to, any oversight to show that we're doing right by the kids.
Yeah, I joined the curriculum committee on my local school board, and every meeting we go through the data. It's data, because if you don't have data, right, you're just guessing. You're just like shooting from the hip.
Yep.
Like if this curriculum doesn't affect, doesn't improve the lives of these demos, right, of non-native speakers, the Black and brown students, the, poor students, who does this affect? And so everyone watching today, your children will be impacted by this. Either you know what you're teaching or you don't. And I think that's a real theme of this administration. And we were talking before, Jason, about when he fired last week, when the jobs came out.
Yep.
That's a data piece too.
Yeah. And so when we were talking, Jason and I were talking about, what we did respectively in the agency. And what was so cool about Jason's job is that he analyzed data that went to, HBCUs, to colleges that served minorities. Well, certainly, I mean, I've been predicting the future about this administration correctly. What you can expect is that you get rid of someone who's actually going to say, these funds have been used. These schools need more funding. If you get rid of them, then they can make it up. They can say, these schools don't need any more funds. We're going to defund HBCUs. I mean, I went to Harvard. They're already defunding Harvard and defunding medical research. Someone would just say, what's your response? The administration is saying that they're able to function. They're able to do all the things that they're constitutionally mandated to do. Everything's great. Things are better. And I can tell you all day long that I'm 100 pounds and a white woman. But if I get rid of all the scales and all the mirrors in your eyesight, I can tell you that all day long. Why would I not want to be able to verify what I'm telling you? They told the American people that they're efficient. But we know that that's not the truth at all. They fired us on March 11th, did not allow us to work, and still had to pay us taxpayer dollars to not work. That is not efficient. That is not cost effective. I don't care how many times you tell it to me.
No. Jason, you were going to say something.
Yeah. So, when you're talking about the statistics and the data, just today, it's being announced that the president is ordering the secretary through some memo, not an executive order, but a memo, supposedly, that they're going to be collecting essentially recruitment data, applicant data in post-secondary education to do a comparison of who's applying versus who's been admitted to ensure that the students, that are being admitted aren't being admitted based on race. And so that's going to go to iPads, which they eliminated the majority of IES and the folks that are in iPads to actually collect and analyze the data. They're not saying who's going to be the ones developing this. They've got the one big beautiful bill, the OBBB or whatever you want to call it, and that's coming out, and they're telling institutions that they're going to be held accountable, but there's nobody at the department that's going to be responsible for these data collections. And so if the data collection folks aren't there, and the data coordinators like me aren't there to ensure that it's of high quality and being governed in a responsible way, then they're just going to do what? Hire contractors.
They're going to make it up.
Or
That's
make it up.
No,
it's going to be one of the two things, or both. I mean, you hire a contractor to make it up, and you can, back push Elon to receive a whole bunch more money. I mean, if the American people would see what is going on, I think that's where they will hopefully stand up and go to their congressional persons, their senators, and make sure that this isn't going to happen, or they're going to bring back folks to actually make sure that there are some protections there, that risk is going to be mitigated in all of this.
Right. It's really, they just want to make sure that enough white people are getting into colleges.
That's it.
I'm not even sure if they care about all white people, because I don't think they do not care about poor people. They do not care about working people. No, they can tell you all day, they've been making all of these statements about, we're going to be super focused on anti-Semitism. And I'm a civil rights lawyer. I'm very, I'm definitely not about anti-Semitism, but yet you fire all the attorneys that were working on the cases to actually actually combat anti-Semitism. So, the cruelty is the point. And again, when you don't have people, you don't have independent federal government workers, qualified federal government workers to actually provide oversight and say, this is actually, we are using the funds in this way, and these are the impacts, then you can make up what you want. Cruelty is the point. And what's so crazy for me about this administration is that they campaigned on eliminating our agency because they wanted to return power and autonomy to the states, to the schools. The federal government should not be getting involved with your day-to-day learning and education. But one of the first things that they have stated they're going to do is that if a school district, if a state decides that they want to help their most vulnerable kids, they're going to take away funding.
Right.
They're doing exactly what they accused previous administrations of doing, because cruelty is the point. And Jason's right. People need to wake up and tell their elected officials that this is not right, because if you do not have right now $100,000 to send your kid off to school or to live in another country, they are coming after you.
Yeah. I mean, the states' rights bullshit has been a ruse since the 1850s, right? Like
I mean, I'm a Black person in America, descendant of slaves, so I really, the states' rights stuff really doesn't doesn't appeal to
No.
me very much. They have the right
No.
to not think of my ancestors as humans. So
That's it. So I want to ask you about this. You guys are your message is so strong, and you're making the rounds. Are you nervous?
So I'm sure he doesn't mind. Hopefully that I'm going to respond to this. I am not. My husband received a fairly threatening message back in February, and we actually had to get the county involved on that. And this was prior to me being riffed. And so at this point, somebody knew. I mean, they knew our address. I mean, it kind of came down to that. And
Oh my God.
For me, no. If something were to happen to me, I hope that it would send a message to the rest of the nation that they need to stand up. I do know that there are folks out there that are scared. I know, that I've been asked several times if I, am worried about speaking out, and I'm not. And and I said this yesterday: silence is complicity. If I remain silent, I'm remaining complicit in what's going on. And so, and I will say my neighbors watch out for me. So other people need to be prepared. But my neighbors all know. But there are so many federal employees that we need to speak up, because that's our duty as American citizens, not even federal employees, just as American citizens. And I hope that people hear what we're saying, and that they will write their elected officials, go to their elected officials' town halls, to their offices, and more importantly, that they run for office. That's also important. And even if it's the local school board or whatever it may be, there are people out there that care. And at the end of the day, for me, this comes down to students and their family members receiving the education that they need and that they deserve as American citizens, so that we can make this country a better country with educated individuals who are willing to lead and move past this hatred and this anger that individuals have towards, underrepresented, minoritized individuals. This country gave back to me. It gave back to me tenfold. I had this opportunity to work for the government, and the schools that I worked for prior to working at the department, 16 years on college campuses, and I impacted so many students on those college campuses. But when I got to the government, I was able to say, from Iliskivik, Alaska, to the U.S. Virgin Islands, and from Guam to North Carolina Central University, I was able to make a difference in those students' lives in some capacity. And I hope that other people know that.
Wow. Sheria, you don't seem nervous.
No, I mean, as a union president, if you have a nervous union president, they should probably not be in that role.
Right.
But I'm a litigator by trade. I'm more afraid, though, of not speaking out. I am a student of history. And you do not get regimes like Hitler in a vacuum. You do not get Mussolini in a vacuum. You get that when you have too many bystanders and not upstanders. And so, the point of labor, the point of unions is to sound the alarm, and to make sure, we have been lied to. They have tried to tell American people that federal employees are not like them, that we
Right.
are not citizens like them, that we are not workers. We are these bloated bureaucrats in a swamp. I'm coming to you from the state of Texas, which is probably another reason why I'm not scared. You can be very heavily armed here
Yeah.
in the great state of Texas. But, you know, they've tried to pit us against each other so that we are distracted from whom the real enemy is. And the real enemy is anybody who's going to be against the working people, anybody who's against providing services to the American citizens, anybody who's against, you know, achieving the American dream for our children. How dare anyone receive a salary that we pay for and attack education? How can you be efficient and you haven't even bothered to know what we do? We have the senator of Texas, Ted Cruz, who went to a school that I went to, embarrassing, getting on TV to say, oh, you know, the Department of Education needs to go because, you know, they do the woke curriculum. You didn't talk to not one teacher. You didn't talk to anyone in our agency, because if you had spoken to just one person, you would have known that's not true. And if your job as a senator, where you're making $300,000 of my tax earned dollars, is if all you're going to do is quote what the president has done instead of check the president, you should not be doing that job.
Yeah.
We don't make that money.
Right. I mean, to be fair to Ted Cruz, most people turn and walk the other way when he walks in the room. So he's not talking.
Well, somebody's voting for him.
Yeah, right. Somebody
and a
voted
lot
for
of
that
people
guy.
are voting for him that he is not interested in serving.
No, that's right. That's right. I have, you know, a couple of points, and but I want to get to the sort of bigger picture. First, you know, you mentioned they're gutting this system of education, and for anyone in the audience who you don't have kids in the educational system, an educated population serves you. It serves all of us, because if you look at the alternative, our private prison industry is going gangbusters right now. So they're closing schools and they're building prisons. And that should tell you kind of everything you need to know about what's happening right now. But I wanted to ask, you know, being union members is not just a source of power, but it's symbolic as well. And I wonder about all of these systems and all of these organizations and departments that are being hollowed out. And you talked about how these departments are built on, you know, with people, citizens like us, who have houses and husbands and wives and dogs and just Americans. Do you see this sort of, is this galvanizing people? Are we getting together? Are we going to form an American union that we can fight back against? And do our the different constituencies, you know, are we connected in some way? Do you have hope?
I mean, I hope so. You know, I think some of the distressing things I've been seeing in legislation aimed against education is that it's, you know, people with degrees against people who without degrees, as if we're not from the same cloth, as if I am not even though I went to Harvard, I'm not a product of sharecroppers. I'm not a product of mill workers who just had high school diplomas, who were members of the United Steelworkers and worked overtime so that their kids can be educated. We are not this, you know, you're either one or the other. That and also our agency provides oversight and funding for trade schools. So even if you weren't going, you know, to UVA or to Harvard, if you wanted to be an electrician, we fund that too. And you have people in power that should be working for us and are getting paid handsomely, that are doing their very best to limit your opportunities. And so I think when you have, you know, just like you had in the French Revolution, when you have people in power that are oppressing the masses, and if people wake up and realize, yo, they've been lying to us and trying to make us feel like, you know, each other, you know, the other person's the problem and not them. Once people realize who the real problems are, you know, and I wonder if the people in office, you know, have studied the French Revolution, have studied Marie Antoinette, but that normally doesn't go well for them. Once you do have a union, once people do realize there's more similarity and than differences, and with, you know, the job data that I've just experienced, not what they're reporting with just making up. A lot of people are going to, if they're not already feeling the grunt and realizing that they need to band with other people.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to do on the union level. We are working with AFT, the American Federation of Teachers. We're, other agencies of the AFL-CIO, always talking with, because my granddad was a United Steelworkers, so USW. But there are so many, IBEW, there are so many other current unions that we have synergy with.
Yeah.
And American Union, I think that's a really great idea.
American Union. I want to ask, I could talk to you guys forever, and I would love to get you back on as the year goes on, and just touch base and see where we are with this, because I think, a lot of people have this sense that there's going to be one, an election happens and it's all taken care of, but it's gutted, and we're going to have to put it back together in some form. Maybe not the way it was, but something's going to happen. So you both feel like leaders to me, and like the people who are in the right place at the right time. And I'm sorry that this happened to you, but you're the people that we're looking for leadership.
They got the right ones, that's for sure.
Yeah. So where can we learn more, and where can we follow you, and how can we get involved?
Yeah. So as Jason already stated, and I'll have him repeat that if he wants, people should absolutely go to their elected officials. Where you can find us is afge.org. We're a part of the American Federation of Government Employees. If people want to support, there is a Fed fund. Our local, which is the local that represents the U.S. Department of Education employees.
Mm-hmm.
You can find us at AFGE252ed.org. I think right on the first website, you'll see an interview that Jason did, which is really cool. So you can see us in the news and also our ask, but we are part of the umbrella federation for AFGE, which represents the majority of federal employees. And it is not just an attack of our agency, it is an attack on working people, and they're starting with government workers, which is, again, very tied and tested modus operandi for an illegitimate regime.
We've seen autocrat. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, we'll link to all of those sites in the post when I repost this conversation. But Jason and Sheria, it's been such a pleasure having you, and keep up the fight. And we appreciate your work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, Jason. Good to see you.
Bye. Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Anytime. Thanks.